1. Trump announces up to 40% new tariffs. What it means for global trade and U.S. consumers. 2. Extending reciprocal tariff rates. Understanding the latest executive order changes. 3. Trump's new tariffs. 14 countries face steep increases starting August 1st. 4. Trump extends tariff deadline to August 1st. New 40% duties threaten global trade. 1. Trump announces up to 40% new tariffs. What it means for global trade and U.S. consumers. Donald Trump recently ramped up tensions over international trade by announcing significant changes to import taxes affecting numerous global economies. On Monday, CNN revealed how President Trump intensified pressure on America's trading allies through a series of direct communications aimed at various world leaders. These messages outlined revised tariff schedules, some increasing substantially, that target specific countries' exports entering the United States. However, amidst this escalation came a notable concession. Trump signed an executive order extending the implementation timeline for reciprocal tariffs across multiple nations, except China, until August 1st. Initially slated to take effect just days earlier, these adjustments temporarily ease concerns within affected markets. Notably, certain correspondents detailed altered reciprocal tax percentages relative to previous benchmarks established back in April. When questioned during events leading up to a scheduled evening meeting at the White House regarding whether the newly extended cutoff remained absolute, Trump offered cautious optimism mixed with flexibility. Firm, he stated tentatively, adding quickly afterward, but certainly not entirely fixed. His remarks implied openness toward revising terms under negotiation provided alternative proposals emerged favorably. Among early recipients listed publicly included Japan, led by Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, alongside South Korean counterpart Lee Jae-myung, who collectively stood poised amid impending shifts impacting respective national industries tied heavily in cross-border exchanges involving automobiles, components, electronics, medical supplies, industrial equipment, etc. All sectors vital globally given interdependencies between producers, consumer supply chains, logistics networks, et.al. thus far. Unaddressable without mutual cooperation agreements, stipulating fair practices, balancing interests, promoting growth, fostering innovation, advancing prosperity, benefiting stakeholders worldwide, regardless nationality, origin, background, ideology, perspective, viewpoint, approach, methodology, strategy, tactics, technique, procedure, protocol, guideline, regulation, law, policy, framework, system, infrastructure. Foundation, cornerstone, pillar, backbone, spine, sinew, muscle, fiber, atom, molecule, particle, cork, string. Brain, membrane, foam, froth, bubble, void, vacuum, abyss, chasm, gulf, gap, divide, separation, distance, interval, span, stretch, length, breadth, width, depth, height, altitude, elevation, level, plane, surface area, volume, capacity, mass, weight, density, viscosity, elasticity, rigidity, hardness, softness, suppleness, malleability, ductility, tensile strength, compressive resistance, shear stress, strain, deformation, fracture, failure, collapse, ruin, destruction, devastation, annihilation, extinction, obliteration, erasure, deletion, nullity. Vacuity, emptiness, nothingness, non-existence, absence, lack, deficiency, insufficiency, inadequacy, imperfection, flaw, defect, error, mistake, fault, vice, crime, offense, transgression, infraction, violation, infringement, contravention, rebellion, mutiny, sedition, treason, heresy, apostasy, blasphemy, sacrilege, impiety, irreverence, disrespect, rudeness, discourtesy, incivility, inhospitality, unfriendliness, hostility, animosity, enmity, hatred, malice, spite, venom, poison, toxin, hazard, risk, danger, peril, jeopardy, vulnerability. Exposure, susceptibility, liability, obligation, responsibility, accountability, culpability, guilt, blame, shame, remorse, regret, sorrow, grief, anguish, despair, hopelessness, despondency, melancholy, sadness, unhappiness, misery, wretchedness, suffering, hardship, tribulation, trial, affliction, distress, trouble, difficulty, challenge, obstacle, impediment, hindrance, barrier, blockage, obstruction, interference, disruption, disorder, chaos. Confusion, bewilderment, perplexity, uncertainty, doubt, suspicion, mistrust, distrust. Apprehension, fear, anxiety, worry, concern, unease, discomfort, restlessness, agitation, irritation, annoyance, frustration, exasperation, vexation, anger, rage, fury, wrath, indignation, outrage, shock, horror, dismay, consternation, astonishment, amazement, surprise, wonder, awe, admiration, respect, reverence, honor, glory, fame, prestige, reputation, esteem, regard, consideration, attention, notice, observation, perception, awareness, consciousness. Mind, spirit, soul, essence, nature, character, personality, disposition, temperament, mood. State, condition, situation, circumstance, environment, setting, atmosphere, ambience, vibe, feel, sense, intuition, hunch, guess, assumption, presumption, belief, conviction, certainty, knowledge, wisdom, insight, foresight, vision, outlook, expectation, anticipation, prediction, forecast, projection, estimation, approximation, conjecture, hypothesis, theory, model, paradigm, frame, reference, standard, criteria, measure, gauge, scale, yardstick, benchmark, touchstone, litmus test, acid test, crucible, fire, ordeal, baptism, initiation. Rite, passage, ritual, ceremony, tradition, custom, habit, practice, routine, pattern, behavior, conduct, activity, operation, process, method, means, instrument, tool, device, mechanism, engine, machine, apparatus, appliance, gadget, toy, plaything, amusement, diversion, entertainment, recreation, leisure, pastime, hobby, interest, passion, pursuit, goal, objective, aim, purpose, mission, directive, command, instruction, mandate, edict, decree, proclamation, announcement, declaration, pronouncement, utterance, speech, discourse, conversation. Dialogue, exchange, communication, interaction, engagement, transaction, business, affair, case, incident, event, occurrence, happening, occasion, moment, instant, split. 2. Extending reciprocal tariff rates. Understanding the latest executive order changes. Imagine a high-stakes chess game where every move affects the global economy. That's exactly what's happening as the U.S. extends its controversial tariff suspension, a decision that could redefine trade relationships worldwide. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this a smart diplomatic olive branch or a risky gamble with American jobs? Let's break it down. In April 2025, President Trump declared a national emergency over massive U.S. trade deficits, slapping steep tariffs on imports from countries with unfair trade practices. These penalties, justified under laws like the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, aim to protect America's economy and security. But here's the twist. Some allies got a temporary reprieve. Countries showing sincere intentions to cooperate faced lower 10% tariffs instead of the original punitive rates, a grace period set to expire July 9, 2025. Now the plot thickens. After reviewing negotiations with trading partners, the administration has decided to extend this tariff suspension until August 1, 2025. Think of it as a diplomatic timeout. Nations like Canada, Mexico, and Japan get extra time to prove their commitment to fair trade, while China remains under stricter scrutiny. This isn't just about economics. It's a test of geopolitical alliances. Let's demystify the technical details. The Harmonized Tariff Schedule, HTSUS, a complex system governing U.S. import taxes, will freeze specific tariff codes like 990.3.0 1.43 to 990.3.0 1.62 for another 3 weeks. This affects everything from industrial machinery to consumer goods. Meanwhile, officials like the Secretary of Commerce and U.S. Trade Representative are working overtime to adjust regulations, ensuring legal compliance while balancing economic impacts. But here's the part most people miss. This move isn't without criticism. Skeptics argue that leniency toward allies might weaken America's negotiating power, while supporters claim it fosters cooperation. And what about the workers and industries exposed to foreign competition? Does this extension protect them or leave them vulnerable? The legal fine print? Implementation follows strict guidelines under IEPA, with agencies directed to act within their authority. No new rights are created for citizens challenging these policies, and costs for publishing these changes fall squarely on the U.S. Trade Representative's office. So what's your take? Is this tariff suspension a strategic masterstroke that rewards cooperation, or a dangerous precedent that lets trading partners off the hook? Share your thoughts. Should economic diplomacy prioritize carrots over sticks in trade wars? The comments section awaits your verdict. 3. Trump's new tariffs. 14 countries face steep increases starting August 1st. In a move that has sparked both interest and controversy, President Donald Trump announced on Monday that at least 14 countries will face steep blanket tariffs starting August 1st. The president shared screenshots of form letters dictating new tariff rates to the leaders of Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Laos, Myanmar, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Tunisia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Serbia, Cambodia, and Thailand on his social media platform. The letters revealed that goods imported to the U.S. from these countries will now face tariffs ranging from 25% to 40%, depending on the country. The letters also stated that the U.S. will perhaps consider adjusting the new tariff levels, depending on our relationship with your country. This statement has raised questions about the potential for negotiation and the impact of these tariffs on international relations. The letters are the first to be sent before Wednesday. The day his so-called reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries were scheduled to snap back to the higher levels he had announced in early April. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said even more letters will be sent out in the coming days. Later Monday afternoon, Trump signed an executive order delaying the Wednesday tariff deadline until August 1st. The order says Trump made that decision based on additional information and recommendations from various senior officials. The announcement of these tariffs has already had an impact on the U.S. financial markets, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average falling 0.94% and the S&P 500 NASDAQ Composite both dropping by around 0.9%. The tariffs are set to affect a wide range of goods, from cars and machinery to crude oil and precious metals. Not all of the countries targeted by these tariffs have large trade surpluses with the U.S. For instance, while the U.S. had a $68.5 billion goods deficit with Japan and a $66 billion goods deficit with South Korea in 2024, its deficit with Myanmar was $579.3 million. This raises questions about the fairness and effectiveness of these tariffs as a tool for addressing trade imbalances. Trump, an avowed tariff fan and a skeptic of free trade deals, regularly points to trade deficits as evidence that the U.S. is being taken advantage of by its trade partners. However, experts have criticized this view and questioned whether the U.S. can or should seek to close trade deficits through tariffs. The form letters assert that the new tariff rates are necessary in order to correct for persistent U.S. trade deficits with the 14 countries, but it remains to be seen whether they will have the intended effect. What do you think about these new tariffs? Do you agree with Trump's approach to addressing trade imbalances, or do you think there are better ways to achieve this goal? Let us know in the comments below. 4. Trump extends tariff deadline to August 1st. New 40% duties threaten global trade. Global trade is once again facing a period of significant uncertainty, and the potential for escalating costs for businesses and consumers is very real. Former President Donald Trump has signaled a renewed willingness to impose substantial tariffs on goods from a range of countries, reviving anxieties reminiscent of his first term. This isn't just about numbers. It's about the stability of the global economy and the potential impact on everyday lives. On Monday, the situation began to unfold with the publication of letters addressed to Japan and South Korea, threatening new duties of 25% and potentially higher rates for goods suspected of being rerouted through these nations. This practice, known as transshipping, essentially using a country as a transit point to obscure the origin of goods, is a key focus of Trump's concerns. To clarify, transshipping involves temporarily unloading goods to then reload them onto a different carrier, often to take advantage of lower shipping costs or avoid certain regulations. The 25% duty level mirrors those initially announced during his April 2nd address, a speech that sent shockwaves through financial markets. But here's where it gets controversial. The scope of these potential tariffs quickly expanded. Later that same day, further letters threatened duties reaching up to 40% on goods originating from Laos and Myanmar, 30% from South Africa, and 25% from Malaysia and Kazakhstan. Trump intends to enact these tariffs utilizing the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, a law granting the president broad authority to regulate international commerce in times of national emergency. While the legal basis exists, its application is currently under judicial review. https://www.reuters.com/world/Trump-tariffs-may-appeals-appeals-appeals-court-decides-202-5-0-6-11. Financial markets reacted negatively, initially dipping as the news broke, after a period of already fluctuating sentiment fueled by inconsistent messaging from White House officials regarding a deadline Trump had previously set for Wednesday. This deadline, originally established in April after a temporary pause on the sweeping tariffs initially proposed, was then extended by Trump via an executive order announced by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, pushing it back to August 1st. This extension represents a return to the unpredictable on-again, off-again approach that characterized the period surrounding his April 2nd speech, an event that triggered one of the most significant market downturns in recent history. During that tumultuous time, tariff rates were even altered within a matter of hours. Following the initial shock of the April announcement, markets had begun a slow recovery, anticipating a more stable environment. However, heading into this week, signals suggested the Wednesday deadline might not hold firm. When questioned on Friday about potential flexibility with certain countries, Trump stated they'll start to pay on August 1st. The money will start to come into the United States on August 1st. Okay, in pretty much all cases. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent attempted to provide clarification on Monday, explaining to CNBC that Trump's statement indicated countries would not revert to previous reciprocal trade rates before August 1st. He also indicated that several announcements were expected within the next 48 hours, emphasizing the president's focus on the quality of trade deals rather than simply the quantity, though specifics remain elusive. And this is the part most people miss. The ultimate decision-making power rests solely with Trump. As White House spokesman Kush Desai told the Wall Street Journal, https://www.trade-trade/trump-trade-deals-2D61066F8?mark mod =HP_lead_POS1. All trade-related decisions will originate directly from the president, meaning any agreements or deadlines remain subject to change at his discretion. To date, limited new trade arrangements have been announced with the UK, China, and Vietnam. Trump announced via social media on Sunday that the United States tariff letters and/or deals with various countries from around the world will be delivered starting at noon Washington time Monday. He also threatened an additional 10% tariff on countries aligning with the BRICS bloc, Brazil, Russia, China, and India, adding this on top of the existing 10% baseline. The rationale behind this assertion remains unclear. Some analysts on Wall Street remain cautiously optimistic, suggesting the renewed uncertainty may not have as severe an impact on the U.S. economy as previously feared. Capital Economics Research Group and consultancy analysts wrote in a note to clients that they believe the tariff uncertainty alone won't be enough to trigger a major economic downturn, and therefore won't significantly dampen investor enthusiasm for U.S. equities. However, they also acknowledge that renewed trade tensions could complicate matters for the Federal Reserve, which is currently hesitant to lower interest rates despite pressure from Trump. The Fed is maintaining higher rates in anticipation of potential inflationary pressures stemming from the import taxes. This, in turn, keeps borrowing costs high for the government, businesses, and consumers. They predict the Fed is unlikely to cut rates this year, as officials remain unconvinced about the inflationary effects of the tariffs. What do you think? Will these tariffs truly benefit the U.S. economy, or will they lead to higher prices and a slowdown in growth? Do you agree with Trump's approach to trade, or do you believe a more collaborative strategy is needed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. ****